We all know that the camera on the P20 Pro is pretty darn great, but in my last video I didn't look at how it performs when the lights go down, so it's time to put that right. Welcome back to Byte Review. This is the Huawei P20 Pro low light test. Just a full disclaimer, all of these shots were taken with the night mode enabled and the AI functionality switched on. To get us started, we're looking at some shots of the sun just setting on the horizon. This bench is quite a nice place to start. There's a great overall exposure here with some nice colours coming through. There's little to no noise in the sky too, and the grass is still looking quite sharp. Streetlights are starting to come on now as things get a little darker in this shot. In this photo, I really admire how sharp the text has been kept on the boat, and considering the light difference, the blowout on the streetlight isn't as bad as it could be. Quite a range of light levels here in this shot. From the bright lights to the dark areas in the bushes, it's not a bad overall job considering the amount of different light levels, although things are looking a little muddy in those darker areas. To finish off the set, I really like this horizon shot from the P20 Pro. There's a nice gradient of colours going on in the sky, and the slight silhouetting of the bridge is looking pretty decent. Again, if you look at those darker areas overall, things do get a little muddy, but you wouldn't notice unless you're looking out for it. Okay, moving on to some really dark shots now, and I must admit I was constantly surprised at just how much light the P20 Pro was managing to pull out. Weirdly, some of these shots look even brighter than before. No doubt that night mode really kicking into gear now, combined with some of that AI goodness. There's some really nice colours in this shot with nice separation between them too. I'm a big fan of how the streetlights have left a pool of light around themselves. The trees have a nice silhouette to them as well. However, on the minus side, things are starting to look soft, with some of the sharpness from the earlier photos disappearing a little here. Really impressive the amount of light the P20 has managed to pull out of this shot while keeping the dynamic range under control. I would have expected some blowout from the harsh lights coming from the market on the right here, but it's handled it really well. We've still got that nice gradient of colour in the sky too. In the darker parts of this photo you can see things are starting to get a little muddy. However, the main focus of the sky is looking good and the streetlight hasn't blown out too badly. When I took this photo I was genuinely surprised at how good it looked. Things really were dark at this point, but the resulting image is pretty clean. Really enjoying what the P20 Pro is doing with the colours in the sky. However, zooming in a little you can see that softness, but at face value, not bad at all. For this last photo in the set, I tried to get away from as much artificial light as possible, and you can see it's starting to struggle a little. There's some noise starting to come in with the greens towards the bottom, and things are softer than ever. But again, considering the tiny amount of light available, it's not a terrible job. This next set of photos were taken in what I can only describe as borderline pitch black. Even my video camera is having trouble with noise levels at this point, which makes the following photos even more impressive. I'm not going to lie, I did have to take this photo a few times to ensure there was no blur in the resulting image. However, once I got the shot, I was pretty happy with the outcome. Noise has started to rear its ugly head in the sky, which is understandable, and we do start to see some more blowouts in those streetlights. However, it is impressive that in the building on the left, the light actually hasn't blown out. A close-up on the building shows the same thing. A good control of dynamic range here, being able to see inside is pretty impressive, and the sky, while noisy, doesn't look too bad. There's another example of that here. Without being creepy, I was using the light of the room to see how far I could push that dynamic range, and it's done a good job. You can see the edge of the wall on the inside of the room. However, the softness on the shot overall is really bad at this point. Bringing some colour back into the shots of this one. Again, on the surface the photo looks pretty okay, however a quick zoom will show off that noise in the sky. Despite that, the bright lights have been balanced quite well against the harsh dark background. This last photo is probably the most impressive of them all. Despite being a pretty horrible photo, I basically shot it in total darkness, so the fact that it's even managed to pull any form of image out of here was surprising. I'm not even sure where that pool of light in the middle of the shot came from, but fair play to the P20 Pro for finding it. Genuinely admirable stuff. So that rounds off the photos for this test, and overall I'm really impressed with the night mode on the P20 Pro. The only caveat is it does take longer to take that photo and you have to be as still as possible while it does its thing, but otherwise I think it's a feature that will get a lot of use. Now I didn't want this to be another comparison video, but I did take all the same photos with my iPhone X just to have a bit of a look myself and see what the difference is like. And in the really later photos where it's really dark, the difference is actually pretty massive. The P20 Pro had better colours, better dynamic range, and overall more detail. The best example of this is probably the shot right at the end of the evening. The P20 Pro does manage to get an exposure out of it, but the iPhone's photo is just a total muddy mess. So that's a closer look at how the P20 Pro night mode works. If you've enjoyed the video, do pop a like, and I will see you in the next one.